Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Wilson. I'm the founder and host of the People in Fundraising podcast. And today I am really excited to welcome Brandie Evans to our program. Brandie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
So just as a little bit of introduction, Brandie and I worked together at the Salt Lake City-based Intermountain Healthcare Foundation, and we left almost like the same day, almost 14 months ago.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yes, yeah. And you were the events manager at the foundation, correct?
One of the event specialists, yep.
Awesome. And now Brandie is the co-executive director and the director of operations for the bountiful Utah-based Legacy Preparatory Academy. And as Brandie and I talk today, you may hear us use shorthands, just Legacy, but just that's the official title, the Legacy Preparatory Academy. So, Brandie, as a first question, we've talked very briefly in introduction about where you are now and where you most recently were, but just share with our audience, please, how you entered the nonprofit profession.
Yeah, so my last year up at the U, I was majoring in political science up there, met with the counselor, and they kind of had, maybe you should pick a minor for all these electives. And so I chose the nonprofit consumer and community studies as a minor. So kind of the last part of my year up there, did a whole bunch of nonprofit classwork. There was some opportunities to do some internships up at the U, was doing that, and was offered a job working with an attorney in Salt Lake. It was kind of my career path. I had thought, I'll go to law school, I'll do that. And got a job with him, and it was great and eye-opening. Doing some legal stuff for him. He also ran a nonprofit on behalf of his wife, who had passed away from breast cancer. So I was kind of moonlighting in both, and just kind of had an epiphany that the legal world is a lot.
Okay.
As I had just had my daughter, and there were attorneys in their first year that were sleeping at the office when trials were coming up and things. And I thought, I don't know that this is kind of what I want to do right now and have a family. And so really at that, kind of in tandem, those same things, fell in love with what he was doing with his nonprofit and kind of switched and went that direction.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. And were there particular moments that, in addition to realizing that the legal field was not where you wanted to be, were there particular moments on the other end of that spectrum where you thought, this nonprofit world that I'm getting exposure to does pique my interest, and these are the reasons why I want to pursue that?
I think that was the main reason I chose political science. I was really interested in, the government, the community aspect of how it's making people's lives better.
Yeah.
And then, government entities are tied to just certain things, and there's just certain aspects that nonprofits can do and the way that they can kind of help make the community a better place that I really loved. I love that there was that. I mean, his was very cancer focused, but it focused on not only the patient, but their families and traveling and just different things that they would need. And you can see like what an impact you can make, even if it's just that small group, it kind of tends to grow. And so that just kind of sucked me in.
Dynamite. And how long were you affiliated with this foundation, and where were you up until
the progression
at Intermountain? Yeah.
I was with him for probably about 3 years. Then my daughter was diagnosed and got sick. So I took a different role closer to home where I had the option to kind of work from home and be with her. That was with the Rocky Mountain Care Foundation. So I did events and development with them as well. And then was with Rocky Mountain for probably about 5 years. Went over to Intermountain doing events. It was kind of the same thing, but Intermountain's just a lot bigger, a whole different scale. And I was at Intermountain for about 2 years, while simultaneously serving on the board at Legacy. And Legacy went through some restructuring and got the opportunity to kind of jump in and do this for them. This side of the operations is more the development policies and things like that. So
Oh,
A
okay.
gigantic leap of faith and made the move a little over a year ago.
Dynamite. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested, Brandie, as you talk about before you went to Intermountain, you had roles that were more a broader sweep of nonprofit work than the event specialist
Yeah.
at Intermountain. Was it hard for you to go from a portfolio of responsibilities as operations, development, and events to Intermountain, where you really had one primary swim lane, and then now to go back to that broader sweep of responsibilities at Legacy?
Yeah, I think they tie so closely together. In each one of my
Hmm.
roles, there was like that event aspect. A lot of, I mean, I'm sure this isn't surprising to you. The nonprofit world isn't made of money, so a lot of times people are doing several different jobs and things like that.
Yeah.
What Intermountain did was it just magnified that. You know, there was
Mm.
somebody that was helping with policies and procedures, but the events were so much grander. They were much bigger. You know, the biggest kind of thing was doing a golf tournament, and by then I could do those in my sleep. But
Yeah.
organizing something so big where they have, hundreds of thousands of people coming to these events just made it a lot bigger. But I think having the experience of doing policies or writing grants gives you kind of that meticulous, dot your I's, cross your T's things when you're making
Sure.
sure events are going well.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. And I'm reading a book called Quiet right now. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
Yeah, I haven't read it.
Okay. Yeah, the author also did a TED talk about that. And it's on my mind because she talks about the scientific, the research perspectives of humans as introverts, extroverts, ambiverts. So I'm just curious, like, because when I think of an events person, I think of someone who's naturally very outgoing, and yeah, they may have to talk themselves up a little bit to, meet high-end donors at the golf course or
Yeah.
whatever event it is. And then some of the other positions in development tend to attract people on the other end of that extrovert introvert perspective. So where do you think you see yourself in terms of your level of outgoingness, comfort level meeting people that you don't know um, professionally, personally at these events? Talk to us about just what that's like for you to
Yeah.
bring your personal self in these roles.
It's funny. I think I've become more introverted the older I get.
Oh, okay.
um,
Uh-huh.
it didn't bother me as much when I was younger, but I think it just life experiences and growing and changing. There is a lot more of that talking yourself up of you can do it. It's fine. You've done it
Yeah.
before. There's also just a lot less time to prepare for things. And
Mm.
so I am probably the most OCD person on the planet. And so being able to prepare for things, I have to have a plan A, B, C, D, E when I go into
Oh,
things. And you can't always do that. So there is some
yeah.
of that talking up, but I think I am I would say I'm probably a people person more so than other people. So it's easy for me to see, if you're dealing with a child and the conversation you'll have with them and making them feel included and welcome is very different than one you're going to have with somebody else, that might
Yeah.
be $1 million donor. They're different conversations. It's a different way to build a relationship and just kind of taking those verbal cues, body language things, and knowing kind of where those are going, I think is something that's more my strong suit. And so
Mm.
it's helped me to be successful when you've got multiple different, stakeholders and donors coming to events and different things.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And that is that flexibility of personality that you may have to develop depending on situation.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. I had someone close to me who recommended I read this book, and my wife had the copy of it. And this person said, "Oh, I understand Tim a lot better now after reading this book." And I haven't actually talked to the person directly about that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like for me, I think it's more of a situational. Am I extroverted, introverted versus,
Yes.
and I would be on the opposite side. And you mentioned you're becoming more introverted perhaps as you
Yeah.
get older. And I think for me, somehow I'm going the other way,
Huh.
which is one reason why I can do these podcasts. And in the past, I probably wouldn't have,
Yeah.
whether it's people I know or total strangers. So that's just interesting.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
so much easier for me to walk out, into an assembly full of 1,000 kids than it would be for me to walk into an assembly hall with 1,000 adults. Like that
Oh,
gets in my head for sure.
interesting. Yeah. And why do you think that is? What makes one audience different from the other?
Kids are so much less judgmental
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
adults. I mean, they find excitement and joy in everything. Like they are just over the moon about anything that you're doing. And so, and they're a lot more forgiving. I think when
Yeah.
an adult is paying to come to something, a presentation, or they expect a certain level, where kids are like, we're just here to learn and grow and have fun.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So, do you have opportunities in your roles at Legacy to be in front of audiences of children of that head count? Or
Yeah, we've got about 1,000 kids here. So
okay,
we do an assembly once a month, at least with them.
okay.
Something Legacy does here, they have a paideia, and that's kind of like our mission, what our goal is in teaching the kids when they're here. And each
Hmm.
month we focus on a piece of that paideia. And so we're
Okay.
gathering these guys together to kind of talk about that. We tend to split it, junior high and elementary. It's a different conversation, for those guys.
Yeah.
We've probably got 500 to 600 in one group and about 300 in another group.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's terrific. Well, and I appreciate you giving the head count of Legacy. And Brandie, this may be like the most opportune time for you to talk both about how you became affiliated with Legacy and also anything you'd like to share with our audience about how long the school has been in operation. You mentioned the head count just now. And I know there's a new building going up on
Yeah.
the campus, so I'd love to take a few minutes to talk about that, please.
Yeah, it was, I think, kind of serendipitous for us. I think, once our daughter got sick, things kind of shifted and changed. My husband and I both went to public school, and it, wasn't any different. It was pretty clear to us, given some recent medical struggles for her, we were going to need to find a place that would really kind of specialize and hone in on challenging her, but able to help her through some roadblocks she was going to come across when she was in school. So when she was looking to go into kindergarten, we were kind of looking around, talked to her medical team, and they were pretty clear. It doesn't really matter if it's a public school, a charter school, a private school, you're going to have plus and minuses both ways. And it's
Mm,
really going to be about making a relationship with her teachers and being involved at the school. And as we
okay.
looked, the charter schools kind of really thrive off that. They're a
Mm,
public charter school that's publicly funded, but they don't have, the donors and the money oftentimes that private schools have. So they
sure.
encourage that volunteerism with parents. They want you to be involved. They want you to know what kids are learning and really truly believe that having them in there means kids are going to attend school more. They're going to have better grades. And so that seemed like a good fit for us. So my daughter
Yeah.
started kindergarten at Legacy. We were the last in the lottery, like probably a week
Oh,
before school started.
oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, we got her in and was ready. And then, they at that time had a position available on their board of directors. So I kind
Mm,
of thought this would be a great opportunity for me to kind of pivot a little bit more into that governmental side of things,
yeah.
checking rules and regulations and what they do and how they're funded. So I jumped at the chance to be on the board, served on the board for about 4 years.
Okay.
And last year, Legacy had plans to renovate and build, and kind of restructuring went with that. So in kind of this crazy summer of a process, they had an idea to split. Typically, there's one executive director, and
Mm,
it's a lot. We were seeing that with our team. People were burnt out and tired. And so
oh,
they had kind of thought, we'll split that role. We have a director of education and then a director of operations. And operations is kind of in charge of policies and fundraising and development and things. And so they offered, and I thought, it scared the crap out of me. If I'm being completely honest. I've never been in education, but thought
mm,
I'm going to do it. Let's try it. It'll be something that's challenging every day. So
yeah.
jumped in with them, and it was immediately like hit the ground running. My very first, I think, few meetings, they had decided they were going to build. We are in an area that only has one entry and exit point. So the city had
Oh,
just allowed an assessment to build a new road. So it gave us the opportunity, and we jumped and started building. So both of our campuses, our elementary and junior high building, are about 100 yards away from each other. We've got a
awesome.
3 through 9 campus. Work to get that building. So over the summer, they built and renovated. So we started building last October in the new building, and we opened both buildings in August.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think of how much we did in 9-10 months, but it's so exciting seeing all of the kids, and the junior high kids are able to walk across the path and do TA work and peer tutor work with the younger kids, and they get so excited. I think it gives them that sense of accomplishment when they we're in 3rd and 4th grade math and we're struggling and had no idea what they're doing, and now they get the opportunity to go over and help those guys kind of learn and master something. So it's fun to see. It's been really exciting.
That is so rewarding. That's
Yeah.
gonna be really cool to have the students progress and then give back while they're still there.
Yeah, it's
and give them
so fun to see.
opportunities to
Yep.
teach. Yeah.
It's really kind of a lot of what legacy is building. Everyone goes to school and learns their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but they really, like here, we really try to, these are going to be citizens of our community. And part of that is helping someone when you see that they're struggling, and making sure, these guys are going to leave eventually,
Yeah.
and they're going to go out into the community, and what kind of person do they want to be? Do we want them to be? And to be really productive members of society. I think it's a really important piece sometimes that's missed in a public school setting. It's just, there's a curriculum you have to get to, and this is that. And also realizing that there are some people that are going to struggle, but you can still give them the tools that they need to become really successful human beings.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the questions I had was, first of all, so junior high, when I was in junior high in Massachusetts, it ended. It was just 7th and 8th grade. And then when I moved to Utah, my oldest was going into junior high. I'm like, oh, junior high is 7, 8, and 9. So is Legacy that same Utah public model? Is it 7, 8, 9?
Yeah. So
Okay.
K through 6 is our elementary school, and then we have 7, 8, and 9
Okay.
at the junior high.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long has Legacy been in operation?
They opened in 2004.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're coming up on the 20th
I know.
anniversary.
So they've been here quite a long time. They've got a really great reputation in the community. So it's been fun to be a part of, seeing this next phase of growth for them, for sure.
Sure. And just from a fundraising perspective, I've got 2 other questions.
Yeah.
Are you or the board leadership planning a 20th anniversary celebration?
Yeah, I think now that we have a little bit of breathing room from raising funds and building, bonding is a whole different experience for me. I mean, you're working with the state and the government and other stakeholders, parents, to get those things done. So now that we have that done, for sure, there's things that you want to include to kind of enrich the student experience here. So it'll be fun really working on alumni. There's some really great kids that have come here. Legacy is a classically based education, but they focus on fine arts. And so we've had a lot of kids that have gone on to do really great thing in the arts. They've gone, to Harvard, different colleges. And so I think to spotlight some of those people who have been here, since kindergarten, and these great things that they're doing will be really prominent, showing that for a 20-year anniversary, for sure.
That's so cool. And that without knowing it, you started to go down my second question, which was, where have your alumni gone on from Legacy? And is there, this is my data personality coming through, like, do you track address changes and keep in touch through marketing and newsletters and such to help those first generation alumni stay connected?
Yeah, I think it's funny, when we started, we have a new development director that's working on her, and that's been like something she has been so excited to do, and no one was really kind of on board with some of those things, and didn't, I think, see where the importance of that these people grow older, they have children, they can come back, there's things that they're doing in the community. So she's really spearheaded that effort. So she's kind of working on getting that data to see where they go. There's of course, those people that come back and they want to tell you what they've done and show off. She's went to some of their shows and different things. So I think that'll be a really key component to future success for Legacy, is having those people be able to say, once you get into junior high, you're in 9th grade, you kind of know it all, and where life's going to be. And to have someone who's kind of been in your shoes, that isn't your teacher or a director of the school telling you, why things are important, I think will be so cool for them to see. Some of them, their friend's older sibling or thing. And to see them be successful and excited about what they're doing, I think will have a huge impact for Legacy for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I wondered, as you talked about this development director, in the role that she has and the work she's envisioning doing, is there a network of independent or charter schools in Utah where she and you can network with American Heritage School or other institutions in the state?
Yeah, the charter schools don't really have. It's funny to
Oh,
me see the budgets are small, so a lot of them do not have a development director that's kind of focusing on those things. They will have someone
yeah.
that kind of moonlights in some of those things and
Oh,
does it, but really to have someone dedicate all of their time to doing that is not something a lot of charter schools do. So I really
mm,
think that will kind of set Legacy apart in that way to kind of show that it's a priority, it's important. And to
yeah,
do that. So, I mean, it's kind of the sky's the limit for her, really, where she's kind of seeing the most help and support is the universities do this a lot. And Legacy is a preparatory school to get, kids prepared for college and things. So kind of
yeah,
mimicking what they're doing there. It's different, because they're elementary and junior high kids. So you've got to change some things around, but she's looked out of state a little bit to kind of see where those things are. And then we just kind of have to tweak it to where it fits, our community and the state that we're in to make that successful.
sure. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and this is yet another curveball question. I sent you a few questions ahead of time. I just wanted to ask a little bit, because it's such a conversation, locally, nationally, with, at least in the public school, with the curriculum.
Yeah.
On many sides of the political aisle, you hear people all bent out of shape about public education. So with Legacy and the emphasis on fine arts instruction and developing the child for being a civic leader in the future, what can you share with us about sort of parental involvement in how the curriculum is taught? Do you get pushback from parents? Do you get parents that are really supportive of? I mean, obviously they're supportive because the child goes there, but I'm just remembering my wife was a private school teacher in Massachusetts, and there's a lot of dealing with the parent
Yeah,
outside of the classroom too. So
for sure. I think, a lot of people have to choose to come to a charter school. You enter into the
yeah,
lottery there. It's not a done deal. You kind of got to know what you're doing and where to go, but there's still
yeah,
some of that. Like public charter schools are still governed by the same kind of rules as far as what curriculum is being taught, policies and procedures of that nature. Where it's different is the autonomy that the teachers
uh,
have. If your kids are soaring in English, but you need a little bit more time in math, there's kind of that autonomy to move and pivot and do those things.
mm,
But I still think we have some of the same things. We have our counselors. The big, I think, thing that is kind of going around is SEL lessons and what that means. Are we talking to kids about LGBTQ plus things? And
yeah,
there are opinions on both sides of you
yeah,
should teach it, you should open. No, this is something that's handled at home. And the moment you say that, people automatically go there. But really, what it is, and
yeah,
we teach it here, is their social skill lessons. They're
mm,
lessons on learning. You're not always going to agree with someone on the playground. You can't push them. You can't punch them. How do you
yeah,
kind of have that conversation? And so there's always those questions. I think as soon as you sit down with parents and have that conversation of these are social skills, these are skills that kids have to learn for
mm,
school, for high school, for college, to just go on to their careers, their work life. Those are why those things are important. And there is a gamut at the schools where you have some families that are extremely involved in having those conversations, and then you have some that are not for one reason or another.
yeah,
So there has to be a balance of giving those kids kind of some exposure to some of these skills that they need to kind of learn about and practice and do
yeah.
that. My daughter last year, their social skill lessons were just on different things, marketing, how they market to, get kids to smoke and do other things. And,
Oh, yeah,
the way I think that they do it and it's successful is this is kind of a high level lesson of what we're teaching, but we encourage you to have a conversation with your kids when they get home about this, about respecting a big thing last year, kids had not been in school for 2 years. And so figuring out, the right way to play with each other and, respect everyone's space, that was a lesson that was taught to them. You ask to touch someone. When you extend your hand to shake someone's hand, you are asking for permission to touch them, and they reciprocate by doing that. So I think it's just those things, and parents, instead of assuming the worst, need to assume the best intent, and why, ask the why rather than, a how come question. So I think we still get some of those things, but you've got to be willing to partner with your teacher, your child's teacher in the school, and just really understand what it is. And I think if people set through some of the lessons, or, we're here and volunteering, there's far less concern for sure once you figure that out.
That's terrific. That sounds like a very reasoned, level-headed approach to both fulfilling the mission of the school, but also engaging with parents within boundaries that you as administrators are setting.
Yeah.
That the emphasis on the child's education.
Yeah. And part of that is nice to have that, option to bring parents in. We have a curriculum review committee where we've got administration and teachers and parents who inherit, this is something we're changing. This is where we're kind of going. And to get, a teacher's perspective on a math curriculum they're teaching and the successes, but then also talking to parents and students of this is working or it's not, is a nice way that we can kind of pull all of them together to keep bettering what we're doing. So I think that's what's really nice. It just, when you get into kind of a district, it's so big, it's harder for them to do those things. We're a fairly large charter school, but still small enough that we can do those things and talk to parents and get some feedback. And the community is small enough that we kind of know what direction it's going to go based on, emails or questions we're getting. So I think those things help to make it even more successful.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Brandie, you mentioned your daughter a couple of times in this conversation. She's enrolled at Legacy, and you mentioned the diagnosis for her. So pivoting from Legacy, if you want to share whatever you're comfortable with about your daughter, because I know that you are involved with a nonprofit that helps raise funds for the Children's Tumor Foundation, and just talk with us about obviously whatever you feel comfortable sharing first and foremost, but just what that community has meant to you and your family, and to be involved in that way in raising funds. Please.
Yeah, I think we've said her diagnosis has been the best, worst thing that's ever happened to us. She was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis type 1 at about 2 months old. And I can remember, very vividly, going to the pediatrician and them, us asking a simple question of, she seems to have birthmarks kind of all over. What is this? To it just kind of spiraling of, this is what we think she has. And you need to go to see some people at Primary Children's. Do not Google anything. And I remember pulling it up on my phone on the way out. I think I had it pulled up and was reading before my husband had her buckled and secured in her car seat. And it was terrifying. The things that pull up on Google are, it's images no parent ever wants to see. You immediately see, your beautiful brand new baby and think, what is going to be her life? What is this going to be?
Yeah.
Doing kind of some of that and trying to figure, you read one website and it's different than the other one.
Sure.
We stumbled upon the Children's Tumor Foundation and noticed that one of their lead researchers and doctors who has a clinic was in Salt Lake. And so it kind of brought a little bit of comfort there. Met him about 2 months later when we were able to get in for her appointment. And he, kind of went through, took as much time as we needed, and introduced us to a community that was here. They hold a walk every year to fundraise for research things. But I think almost even more importantly is kind of the community of people that you meet. She was an infant when she was diagnosed. And then, they do routine scans, found out she had bilateral optic nerve gliomas, which are brain tumors on her optic nerves, when she was about 2. And that community was kind of the first place we were able to go to ask questions. There's no one in our family that has ever had this, that has kind of ever walked that path. And so I think as supportive as people are, it's really hard to understand where someone's coming from unless you've kind of walked a mile in their shoes. And I met my very best friend because of this. Her daughter has the same thing. And we were able to kind of chat over Facebook, just asking questions about a protocol they were on. And
Yeah.
our girls are about a week apart,
Oh,
in
wow.
age. So to form those friendships and that camaraderie, I think is something people so desperately need. The world is so full of good people and they want to help you, but it's almost impossible to understand what it's like for someone to watch some of those things and to have that community of people and be able to keep that community going and bringing them all together has been, something that I've tried to
Yeah,
walk away and just like give myself some extra time. But
sure.
you hear something of someone who was in the same position as we were 10 years ago, so scared and afraid and wondering what it was going to be like for their kid. And to know that, they come and this is the community that they have and where they feel safe is, it's kind of indescribable.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautifully put. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have, except Brandie and I are friends on social media, and your daughter has had fundraisers and they
Yeah.
look really fun, and that sense of community you talk about must be so important. So,
Yeah, it's fun. And to know, she's getting a little bit older and understands, it was hard watching her at such a young age, but I almost think it was easier to go through a year of chemo when you are 2 years old.
wow.
She didn't really much, we put her in the car seat, we go, and it's not a fun experience, but I think it would be so much harder for her now. She's 10, she has friends, she goes to
Yeah.
school. She would know what it's like to kind of have to scale back on doing some of those things because it's just not healthy for her at that time. And
Yeah.
so I think to get her involved and teach her how to advocate for herself, going to the doctor is going to be a lifelong thing for her. And so to
Yeah.
advocate, there are decisions that mom and dad are going to have to make because you're just not quite old enough to do it. But there are decisions she gets to make. She gets to tell them, where she wants a wristband when she goes in.
Yeah.
So kind of, working with her to show her it's not always fun. It's not. And there are exceptionally difficult conversations that I think as when my husband and I were getting married, we never thought we would have. But it's also
Yeah.
opened the door up to our family, I think, is much closer and you're able to kind of have it can't get much worse. So you can kind of have those really hard and insensitive sometimes conversations because it's a necessity. You have to do it. And I think
Yeah.
it makes her a better person to know that, she's struggled and her brother, he's going to see the different things that she has to go through and to be a little bit kinder and understanding that not everyone is the same and people have different struggles, I think will be really good for both of them.
Sure. Yeah. Building that empathy, beyond what it could normally be for siblings. I can imagine that would be part of your son's
Yeah.
development as he gets older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for her too, it's funny. School is not easy for her. It's hard and we knew it would be and it's a struggle.
Yeah.
But we have, I think at every kind of parent teacher conference and meeting, they have said she is the kindest person that we've
Oh,
ever
wow.
met. And I think that as a parent, that's the highest compliment that you can get. Because I think
Yeah.
she knows what it's like to struggle. She knows what it's like to have people ask questions or make fun of her. And she doesn't want people to feel that way. And so
Hmm.
I think that's why I said, it's the worst as the parent.
Yeah,
You never want to
sure.
watch them struggle or go through things like that, but it's also the very best thing. I think it really molds and shapes the people that both of them are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's very touching and certainly personal. So,
Yeah.
but I posed the question and invited whatever you want to share because you are very active on social media talking about the causes and the events
Yeah.
and just seeing, back to school photos with your children. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
fun. It's the
Yeah.
greatest job I've ever had for sure.
Well, Brandie, thank you so much for your time today. We're just about at the hour. Is there any last comment or anything that as we've talked today that's come to mind that you maybe have put on a shelf and if I were going to ask it or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
just, encourage parents to get involved in your child's education. You won't regret it for a second.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great message. And I don't want to hold you up from fall break starting, so but this has been a real delight. I
Yeah.
really appreciate your time today, Brandie. It was great to reconnect with you and to hear your story. So thank you for sharing it with
You're
us.
welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And to our audience, you can find Brandie Evans' conversation on my website, peopleinfundraising.com, as well as every Monday I post a new interview. So look for Brandie's in the next few weeks. And thank you for your support as listeners and watchers of this program. Have a good day. Thank you.